Third down and 20.
The value of positions, but tight end. The cheeky little tight end. So I wanted to start this one off with like another question that I did with the value positions running back, but one that's not necessarily as like self-explanatory as rhetorical. How do you value top tight ends compared to other top positions, quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs? Because I think that tight ends it's a really wacky position because you have both longevity, but you have a maturation period, a little marination that's needed for a lot of the top tight ends. They a lot of times do not break out in their first year, and the ones that do, there's not really a huge correlation between the ones that have early success and having continued success. And they also have the cliff of the running backs. So it's like, how the hell do you navigate this compared to the other positions, which seem to be a little bit more straightforward?
We're in a weird time where most of those top elite tight ends are aging out. So you have the likes of Travis Kelce and George Kittle and Darren Waller, who are all, I think the youngest of them is Kittle, and he's like 27.
Yeah, Kittle's 27.
Yeah. So, and you know, you just talked about they have that kind of cliff like the running backs where it's not much longer, 2-3 years tops for these guys until that cliff is likely there. You can make the argument for Waller, he's more a wide receiver, yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, more likely than not, the cliff is coming for these guys. Now, it's a weird time then where you also have that shiny unicorn in Kyle Pitts and where he gets valued next to these guys too. Because like you said as well, it takes a little while for those tight ends to break out typically too. And so are you going to price him around where he's going with established wide receivers and established running backs and, middle of the pack quarterbacks? Like, it is such a difficult position to kind of navigate. And with that, I find myself avoiding these top guys. I'm avoiding the likes of a Travis Kelce, a Darren Waller, and George Kittle. I'll let other people pick them up in those, 4th, 5th rounds whenever they're going. Kelsey's probably still even going higher.
More like 3rd round. Kelce,
yeah.
I've seen go 2nd round still.
Yeah. So they're going like a little too high for me. Where I'd rather have those established guys. I mean, Pitts is the only one, but even Pitts I sometimes struggle with how highly he's being valued. I'm kind of rambling here, but I'll cut it off with if Pitts pans out and you're buying Pitts where you're buying him, you're buying a cheat code for the next 7 years conservatively, where you're not going to find that kind of value anywhere. You're not going to get that kind of value anywhere else where it's just a game-breaking kind of talent. Now, I don't know what the odds are of him panning out, but if you could get that, there's that big but. If you could get that kind of cheat code, you're getting him for super cheap.
So I want to start it in the startup draft, kind of like you said. So JT, you think that the 3rd round is too early for the top tight ends? I think that if you really think I like George Kittle. I think George Kittle's phenomenal, and for the next at least 3 years, he's going to be a great player. Kyle Pitts too. Darren Waller, I think even as well. Kelce, not so much necessarily, but he's still a good player for this year. All 3 of those guys, I am down to draft in the 3rd round. If I really think that they can give me that huge competitive advantage, and especially in a tight end premium league where it's like they're just going to be a class and above, go ahead, give it to me every time. I think that's good value.
Yeah, I mean, I think Frank touched on something that I want to point out is the competitive advantage of the tight end position. Because of how scarce the position is in general, the top guys provide you with such an advantage over your opponent. Just because, we pointed out, and we play, tight end premium, so we get an extra half point for all tight end receptions, stuff like that. Travis Kelce would have been wide receiver number 1. Darren Waller would have been wide receiver number 3. While guys are putting out there the likes of Jonnu Smith.
Yeah.
And
another one, Jake, for you is in 2019. Remember how Michael Thomas broke the receptions record? George Kittle in our tight end premium settings that you mentioned would have had more reception points than the dude who broke the single season receptions record.
Right. It's just it provides such an advantage because everyone has to start a tight end in most formats, I would say. So the fact that your tight end is being compared to the likes of the top end wide receivers compared to a guy that would probably be at best a wide receiver 3, if a flex play at best, if he was, categorized as a wide receiver, just provides a huge advantage. And I think paying up to get one of these guys, I understand in the startup draft, it's a little steep. To get, those guys in the third round, I think it's a lot, like JC said. But in terms of Kyle Pitts, taking him at 102, 103 in a rookie draft, I'm smashing it. And I know that we all just think Kyle Pitts is, a unicorn and there's no chance. I don't think Kyle Pitts, if we're talking redraft, I think Kyle Pitts should probably be around tight end 7, tight end 8, just because the best tight end season ever for a rookie was like Evan Ingram in 2017, whatever he was drafted. So that's what I'm saying. He would have to break every single tight end record, touchdowns, receptions, receiving yards. He would have to break every one. And I'm not saying he's not capable because I think he's that good of a prospect. But I'm just saying he would have to shatter all of those records to meet his redraft price right now. And in terms of Dynasty, I do think eventually he will get there. But like Frank said, there's kind of a learning curve to the tight end position in the NFL that's, not like any other position. Running backs come in, it's the same thing. They hand the ball if you have the vision, you'll get the yards. Receivers, if you run your route, you get open, you get the yards. But tight end, you have to learn to block and you have to learn to play the NFL game because it's a little different than college and they're used differently than they are in college. So you have to learn the game, and it's more of a learning curve than any other position. And I think a lot of people tend to forget that. And
we want to know why.
Because they want the production right away. That's what they want, and they don't see it.
Well, why it's a learning curve is that you have to split your time between the running room with the run game coordinator and the passing room with the pass game coordinator. You have to know all the blocking schemes. That's one of the main reasons why the first dudes that are looked at on the offensive side of the ball for offensive coordinators and head coaches are the quarterback coaches. Second, tight ends.
Now, I did a thing while you guys were talking about that. I started my own little Superflex tight end premium mock draft while you guys were talking. And the likes of so I got my results. Now this is obviously is an ADP, but it gives you a rough idea. George Kittle went first at 208. Kelsey went 211. Pitts went 308. Darren Waller went 309. Now
308 for Pitts in a dynasty.
But think about
premium is
I really like Pitts, and Pitts would probably be the only one I'm considering taking. But the guys still on the board are, the J.K. Dobbins, DJ Moore, Justin Fields, Terry McLaurin, Antonio Gibson, Stafford.
Yeah, damn, man.
There's a lot of good names.
It is tough. It feels really bad to spend that high of a pick on a tight end.
Yeah,
right. But the competitive, like I said, the competitive advantage, the difference between, let's say you take Pitts at 308 and you kind of turn around and now your quarterback is Matt Stafford instead of, I don't know, Russell Wilson. It doesn't feel good, but the points difference.
Kyle Pitts might be a little different though.
Kyle Pitts is the only one out of those four. He's such an anomaly to those other three guys of the Kelsey, Waller, and Kittle.
I mean, that's just because of age. But that's the thing is, do you think he hits this? When do you think he hits this potential? Do you think he is hitting that immediately out of the gate?
I'm of the minority opinion where I do think Kyle Pitts will break out this year and will beat Evan Ingram's record.
If you treat him as a wide receiver, he's got a 42% chance of breaking out, probably higher if you just look at top 5 or top 10 draft selections.
I believe in that because he can
you
line up at receiver.
Number 4 to sit around and be your average motherfucking tight end.
He can line up at receiver.
Yeah. Right. You said that about TJ Hawkinson, who was taken 10th overall or whatever it was.
Okay, but different players. Think about the value difference between pick 4 and pick 9 or 10, wherever Hawkinson was picked.
That you have to give up 2 first.
That is a big value.
49ers had to give up 2 first to move that.
To a certain extent. Yeah. It is comparable, but it's not. And TJ Hawkinson, you're going to tell me that TJ Hawkinson's a bust right now? I think TJ Hawkinson is a prime position to really break out this year.
I mean, he is.
But okay, let's stop arguing about the specific tight ends. I kind of want to touch more on how we handle this in startup drafts because I want to come out and say I've had very mixed results with tight ends in dynasty leagues. Most leagues, I think I do a pretty good job.
Self-proclaimed tight end guy too, eh?
Okay, well, here's the thing, right? I have always operated with the strategy with very mixed results of I'm just going to write down the value of tight ends that I like, right? And I'm just going to try and find the one dude that I can trade into for a very fair price, or I can pick around after the ADP. So some examples of that in our league, it was George Kittle and Dallas Goedert, which for their ADPs really panned out. And then I picked up Mark Andrews the next year, like, okay, tight end city, right? But in another league, we ended up taking, I think it was Hunter Henry and like some other bull crap. And we've been trying to find a tight end for a while now. In another league, it's like, okay, Noah Fant. And then I think Noah Fant's still a good player, but he's not a reliable tight end for a competing team. And it was a weak spot on a team that eventually lost the championship. And it's like, you can sit around like I have in the 7th, 8th, 9th rounds, and then even above, and take a shot at a high upside tight end you like. And yeah, 1 out of every 4 drafts, you may nail a George Kittle, but I don't know. Like, maybe I'm going to start being the guy that shells up and starts taking tight ends early in drafts.
I think it's worth it because I think, like we've said when we talked about running backs earlier, you can find some value plays at running backs. I don't think you can really find value plays at tight ends. You either have the top guys or you have the wasteland. And when you get stuck with the wasteland, it's kind of hard to dig yourself out unless you invest into it. You got to put, a high-end pick into a Kyle Pitts, a high-end pick into a TJ Hawkinson, and really invest in it to get a guy that you think is going to be that tight end for you.
There's a lot of guys I think are getting high picks wasted on them this year. Sorry, you're gonna feel targeted real quick, Jake. But like Irv Smith Jr., Adam Troutman, these feel like guys.
Just name my tight ends, why don't you?
I said you're gonna feel targeted.
We talked about Kelsey. Don't feel too bad.
We talked about Kelsey. Now you're bringing up Irv Smith and Troutman. You just might as well name my whole tight end room.
I don't like your tight end room. But to be fair, I think these are the guys that like people then go turn around and say like this is why it's not worth like investing on these young tight ends, and I just think those aren't the young tight ends that you want to invest in.
Well, the other thing too, though, is
I didn't put a lot. Just to
you did. No, you did.
I didn't put a lot. I spent pick 310 on Irv Smith 2 years ago, and 309.
And those were fine in the draft. Yeah, those were totally fine in the draft.
309 on Troutman last year. Like I didn't put high capital into these
and
guys.
They've only gone up since, which is good. But like I think now would be the time to sell them if you could. I don't know if you're able to. But
we'll see. The other
a few
argument
offers, and then Frank came out here and just played the dirty rat card on me. Snag my trade.
One thing that has to be said about Jake's tight ends, and the fact that I found great value in tight ends. I've never really taken a tight end all that high, and I've had fantastic tight ends. Is that if you just took every single draft a tight end in that 3rd or late 2nd or early 4th that was a good athlete that had at least above average production. You didn't have to shoot in the 1st round for the O.J. Howards or Hawkinsons or Fants or whatever. You could have snagged some pretty damn decent tight ends.
Do you know what Troutman and Irv Smith's consensus ranking right now is on Keep Trade Cut? Just off the top of your head.
12 and 13.
Irv Smith is 8, Troutman 10.
Yeah, you hit it on the head. It's not.
No way.
Irv Smith, not exactly. Irv Smith is 9 and Troutman's 11. So you were one spot off on each of them. But I picked 3rd round, draft these guys in the 3rd round. I think that's something you can do. Is very easily take the guys that just have high upside. Situation might not be great. Let them develop like I said, tight ends have that time to develop. You give them 2 years each, and now look, Irv Smith is tight end 9 in Dynasty consensus. Like it's absolutely
on
insane.
That taxi, baby. Let him marinate.
Who's the guy this year? Trey McKay, Brevin Jordan,
Freiermuth,
Hunter Long. Well, Freiermuth's not that late.
Freiermuth's not
late
exactly
second.
that
I
late.
think is a great pick to land Freiermuth. I've been on Freiermuth for a while, so I think that if you're a team that has a late 2nd round pick, maybe you have 2, and you need a taxi squad shove. Like, I liked Cole Kmet last year. Mainly, I wasn't a huge Cole Kmet guy, but the fact of the matter is I picked him up at the late 3rd in like 2 leagues. Fine, I'll shove him on the taxi for 2 years and see if I can get something. I think it's worth the upside, especially for an early to mid 2nd round pick where he was in the draft. on a team that's not getting some hype. I mean, at least I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, you said who's that guy this year? I mean, I think a lot. I mean, there's a bunch of them that I think have that potential. I mean, you talk about Noah Gray is in Cincinnati or Kansas City, excuse me, with aging Travis Kelce. He was an athletic tight end for Duke. You got Brevin Jordan in Houston. You got Hunter Long, Jacob Harris, and I think Jacob Harris and Kylan Granson are my two favorites. I know I'm hyping up.
But
JT.
you can just look at the past couple of years, though, too. Like every single year, there's a handful of. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to turn into elite guys, but if you take enough shots and enough digs, eventually, if you do that for 4 or 5 draft classes, investing not crazy third-round picks, you can pick up third-round picks if you really need to. All right, they're not hard to come by, and you just took a shot every year on the tight end that's going around there. I feel like you're bound to hit eventually on someone that's top 8, top 9, and maybe that eventually ends up in a top end guy. Let's move off start. So we've kind of already moved off startup.
Yeah, we've been off startup.
All right, but like post startup, how do you deal? Like, let's just say you whiffed in the startup. You did what I did in that one league. You picked up a Hunter Henry or whatever, and maybe a Hayden Hurst, and you just whiffed. And you said, well, shit, I got a pretty decent team, especially because the startup, I didn't draft a tight end early. I was able to pick up that extra Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But now I got to go pick up a tight end. Like we saw in our league, the price for George Kittle was just 2 firsts and a second, I'm pretty sure, which is, even as just George Kittle owner, that's pretty steep.
That's real. I said it was steep, and you guys thought it was spot on. I thought it was a little steep, but what do I know?
I mean, the thing is, though, is that like you got to get that dude to budge because a lot of people have Kittle as the TE1. And I mean, I imagine you got to shell up 2 firsts to go out there and get your average Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
In a tight end premium league, at least. Like, we're assuming tight end premium here, by the way. So, like, if you whiffed on the tight ends, are you just going to continue bargain buying, or are you going to just try and shell out multiple first-round picks and get that top-end dude?
I don't know if I'm shelling out multiple first-round picks because I think that kind of handicaps me moving forward in terms of, available, trade assets and just keeping your team overall young and stuff for a tight end here. But I'm definitely willing to shell out one and probably some prospects that people are high on. Like if you turned around last year and you said right after the rookie draft, you go, okay, I want a top tight end. And you said, I'll give you Rager and a first-round pick and a second-round pick. I think there would be a lot of teams that would turn around and go, yeah, okay, I like that. Or like, I think you could do the same thing this year where the guys like, Elijah Moore and Rondale Moore and a first and a second. And I think you'd get a really, really good tight end. And then obviously you could turn around and, it could bite you in the ass and Rondale Moore could be, top tier wide receiver, but you could also get, the Jalen Ragers and you gave up nothing almost. You gave up 1 first-round pick for an absolute, position advantage.
You want to know why you're right, Jake? Is that I have been an owner of Mark Andrews. I probably said it like 4 times this episode. I was an owner of Mark Andrews for ever since he came in the league. What, 3 years? 2 years?
Yeah, 3. I think it's 3 or 4, something like that.
He's entering his 4th, I'm pretty sure.
And I mean, he did pretty well early on. He's always been like a pretty damn good tight end. But and then now this year is the year he's either going to take the leap to be that stud or he's not. But regardless,
he's not. But anyways.
When I tried to trade him last year during the rookie draft, I could not get like a top half of the draft first round pick, and I'm not even sure I could get pick 11, like in that draft. I don't think I could. And I was trying to shop him around the time. I got no offers. I was offering him out just for any first, couldn't get it. But then all of a sudden, when this season, right before the season starts, everyone thinks they're going to compete. They're trying to win the league before the season starts. You could trade Mark Andrews for a first, right? So I think you're right in that once you hit this post-draft or at-draft period and you need a tight end, you can trade your first-round pick and pick up a pretty damn elite tight end. Not the tippy-top guys, but JT, you did it with Noah Fant. You could do it with Mark Andrews. You could do it with maybe TJ Hawkinson, probably league dependent. I don't really think so. You may have to shell up a little bit more than just that first. But regardless, there is a good, talented tight end that you can pick up for your first-round pick and maybe even get a little bit on top. You never know.
No offense, my guy that I'd go out and buy. Not just saying that because I did it, but my theory behind it is Yes.
That's the play. We're writing that down. That's the rule.
He's that guy too, Noah Fant, where it's and Mark Andrews too to some extent, where they're on that offense that they're getting a lot of crap about, where it's like with Mark Andrews, they're the lowest passing attack. Noah Fant, it's you have a bunch of options and you're not going to be a great passing attack. Situation only stays that way for so long. At some point, it's going to change. It's just a question of, do I think both of them will? Probably not, but you got to take your chances at that point. And if it's just the price of a late first in a 2022 draft, I'm going to shoot my shot with those guys instead.
I think regardless, the lesson learned is that if you need a tight end, buy them during or immediately after your rookie draft. Actually, probably during.
During is almost
during or after, but with the young players. That's what we've determined.
Yes.
Because you were saying Rondale Moore or Elijah Moore, if you took him in the second round, and during training camp hype, you're right. You probably could have turned around and been like, yeah, I'll trade you Elijah Moore in a second, and you give me whatever. You could get a deal done. I don't know the deal off the top of my head, but you can get a deal done for a tight end with highly touted receiver draft picks.
I think you could even get the tippy top guys in terms of, maybe not Kyle Pitts just because of the age factor here, and people will be more hesitant to, trade him, especially because they just took him with the 103, 102, whatever it was. I think you could get a Waller who's 27, or you could get a Kittle who's 28 and 27, whatever it is. If you turned around and you said, I know you like both of these guys. Here's Elijah Moore, and a first-round pick.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
If you give him Elijah Moore and a first-round pick, and the guy is an Elijah Moore fan or a Jets fan, and you're playing on that homer bias, I think you could get one of these older guys. They'll be like, yeah, he's 27, he has 2 years left, and I'm getting a rookie receiver that I like and a first-round pick. I think you could work it. It may not be that deal straight up, but you could. That could be the basis.
It could be around there. You're right.
Of what you work around, and you maybe you add a third-round pick, or you add a lower-tier prospect that gets the deal done because they just like him. I think you could really buy some of these top tight ends for not too bad a value, especially with this training camp hype around a lot of the players that, went early to mid-second and then you got at a reasonable price, and you turn around and you're like, okay, well, now I just basically turned a first and a second into George Kittle, and you're like, okay, that's fine with me.
All right. The quick side tangent that I think we just stumbled on, and then we can wrap it up, is it seems like first half of the second round picks for the most part have only gained value since they've been drafted because of consensus.
I think that always happens because those are guys that people are like, they could go in the first round of rookie drafts, but they're sliding into the second, and then you turn around in training camp and you're like, oh, Jalen Waddle's and Devontae Smith is injured already, so Elijah Moore's starting to look real nice.
Yeah,
Rashad Bateman's hurt. Elijah Moore's starting to look really nice. He's hurt though, and then Rondale Moore played really well. So there's a lot of guys that
Paris Marshall, Trey Sermon,
right? That were kind of borderline first round picks. And
don't tell anyone, but the hit rate after pick 7 is basically the same up until the middle of the second round.
Yeah, I know.
But that's
that's in the class, of course.
That's because people fall for the bad prospects. They take the baits of sorry, Frank, but your guy Mac Jones, Devontae Smith, Kadarius Toney will sneak up there, Michael Carter. All these guys who are bad hit rates in general are sneaking up into those early second rounders where it makes sense.
Say
the guys with the lower. Well, Najee Harris he's consensus 105, 106.
His hit rate is also high as a first round running back, but yeah.
No, it's not. He's a 23-year-old prospect. He was senior year running back.
You're gonna have Tinder chick
produce
JT
a whole lot.
crawl out of his hole.
I'll fight you, Jay. All right.
Crawl back in your Tinder hole, JT.
All right. So if we learned anything,
they're gonna require ID on Tinder soon. My catfishing days might be over.
Buy tight ends during the rookie draft or during rookie hype.
It's in the news, Jake. Look it up.